All right, so let's continue where we left off last time. Let's see where we are. So last time around, this is where we were, right? We got started with the user admin. We were playing around with some dynamic content at the top, some dummy content above and at the bottom. So let's clean up what we have so far. We've made some shortcuts in our implementation. Let's clean that up and follow good practices. All right, some best practices. So let's see. Here we have it. No, that's React. That's not it. Here. All right. This is the project that we were working on, and the content is somewhere here. The jQuery one, right? And we had created a user admin client. There it is. All right, so let's clean up the HTML a bit, and let's remove some of the dummy content that we were generating. All right, so let's see. We were where do we add the dummy content? Did I clean it up? Then why does this still have it? User admin red. User admin template client. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's remove that. H1 blue. Let's remove that, and the bottom half. Okay, there we are. The other thing that we would like to be able to do is that we kind of took a shortcut when we were creating the controller. Here we are accessing the server ourselves from within the controller, right? That's typically considered bad practice. It is not the role of the controller to be talking to the server, right? The only responsibility for the controller is to deal with a human being, right? The human being is sending all sorts of events, right? They're typing, they're clicking, they're dragging, right? And their responsibility is to translate, human level interaction into some object representation in JavaScript, okay? And then interpreting those gestures, those human gestures, right, and delegating that to someone who knows what to do with that. Okay, and in this case, it's taking the controller is taking that responsibility, and it shouldn't. So let's move that to a better place. So we're going to move it to another implementation that instead of components, we're going to create a service layer. We're going to create a service layer, services. All right, and in here we're going to create a brand new service, a new JavaScript file called user.service.client.js. Meaning, this file will have the responsibility of being a service. I am a service. Okay. It is my responsibility to handle any data manipulation, and since the client doesn't really have any data, the only one who really has the data is the server, is to go and talk to the server for this data. Okay, it'll be the one single place of access of data, and what data is user data. Right? Anything that has to do with user manipulation, creating users, removing users, updating users, finding a user by any credentials or username or whatever, it will go through here. Okay, and it'll. Sorry, how do I turn this off? So let's see. Let's open that up. Let's create it, and I already have a cheat sheet here. For an implementation of the user admin client, and I believe I will give you one to get you started on the in the assignment. All right, you can start with that. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to pass it here. I'm going to paste it there. There we go. All right, so this is the kind of the old way of creating classes in JavaScript. Right? It's just a function. And if you do new on this function, it treats it as if it were a constructor, right? It creates a brand new instance, right, of this class. And in this class, it's declaring several functions on the instance that is being instantiated. It's saying this dot create user equal create user. This dot find all users equal find all users. Notice that these are all user-related data access, data manipulation functions. Okay. Also, we're declaring a couple of constants that we might want to use locally throughout all these functions, and then we're declaring a self variable, right? Equal this. This doesn't behave the same as this in C Sharp or Java. This has a very funny behavior in JavaScript, right? It kind of only it has a different interpretation of what context are you using the keyword this, as opposed to in Java, this is always the instance of the object, of the current object instance. Whereas this in JavaScript, not necessarily, right? It depends what context are you talking. So to just make sure that I keep a handle on the actual instance of this class, or of this object, I store it in self. It's very common, very common practice. Right? Just copy it locally so that all throughout this class, if I ever want the original instance of the class, of the object, I just use self as opposed to this. All right? Okay, so let's see. I believe we had created two things in the controller. We had created a find, find me all the users. Here in the when we first loaded the controller, right? We find all users. We got to move that to the service. That's where it really belongs, right? It doesn't belong here in the controller. Okay. Plus, in the create user, we also did another post, right? This was another shortcut, right? For time, we were running out of time yesterday. So these two should also live on the service, right? It is not the responsibility of the controller to do server communication. All right, it is a server's responsibility to do all that. All right, so let's do that. Let's move some of these. Let's see. Let's move the create user. Right. Let's move this over here. First, we'll need to grab a hold of the service, of this service. We need to declare it as a dependency in the index. Well, not there. In the component in the HTML. Right, here's the HTML. We're going to declare it as a dependency. We'll say declare and load the service, which is up one, twice, and then going down to services, going down to the user service. There it is. All right, so we loaded the user service function, right, so that we can call it from the controller. And now that we have that, we can go into the controller and create an instance of that service. So user service equal new user. Actually, let's give it a name. Let's just call this the user service. User service client. Client because it is not providing the service, right? The one who's providing the service is actually the server. The server is the one who's providing the service, right? And is exposing all those web services, right, through several endpoints. We're just a client, right? We're just proxying the request over to the server, right? And we are handling that communication, right, between the two. Right? These two, the user service on the client, is kind of like a mirror image of the web service that's running on the server, right? So for every one of these, there will be a mirror image on the server. Okay. All right. So let's start with now that we have the user service client. We can then now, instead of using this fetch over here, we can instead say user service, create user, and we're going to pass the user object, okay? And we can move around. We can move this out of the way. We can move this fetch from here and move it into its rightful place down here. Here's the implementation of the create user that takes as argument user and uses the fetch. Okay? All right? Notice the pattern here. The pattern here is that we declare all the functions above, right? But then we actually implement it down below, right? Actually, you will oftentimes see this implementation instead. You will have the function here. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You'll often see things like this. You'll have, well, actually, I can just copy it. you often see this, like that, where you declare the function on the instance. You say this dot create user, right? And then the declaration is just a function, okay? And you will repeat that for all these. I think this is so much harder to read, right? There's several many anonymous functions, right? If I wanted to know how many services endpoints are in here, I would have to read the entire file, okay? And to realize that, oh yeah, update user is actually declared here. It's way down below, right? I think it's so much easier to read, right? To instead first declare them at the top, right? So that if I open this file, I immediately see, oh, okay, you have these 5 functions that are declared in this service, okay? Without forcing me to scroll through the file, having me to read. So you declare at the top, but then you implement it at the bottom. Okay, very good practice. Especially if you have these services can get fairly long and fairly complex, right? It makes it so much easier for the rest of the team members to get a hold of it. If you want to look at the implementation, well, you have to scroll down and see how it's implemented. Okay. All right. So let's see. Create user is basically calling the same thing. Notice here that we have HTTP, the URL. We can just use this .url. Right? We could just point it and just replace this like that. It's a post, it's a stringify, okay, we're done. And we can return this. We can just say return. And then the user service can then just call this. Right? So let's try it out. Let's see if we broke anything. Let's go back and let's refresh our page. Let's refresh and see if we broke anything. Just do some garbage, put in there, create, and maybe we did break. I thought I refreshed it. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, right. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we are able to create, and it's still working just like before. And one more thing that we might want to do is that once we create, we would like to be able to refresh the page, right? Once we're done, without me having to press Control R. So let's do that. What we could do is that notice that this returns the fetch, right? Remember that fetch, what it returns is really what? A promise, right? And we can register with the promise for a callback when it's done, right? So what we could do is that. We could say dot then, right? And this is our callback saying, hey, notify me when you're done, right? And what do we want to do? We want to fetch all users. Where's all the users? They're here, right? There's our promise that actually does the find. So why don't we maybe create a function called find all users. Right, and perhaps we can maybe put this whole thing in there, right? Let's put that in there so that we can actually reuse that function. Yes, we can reuse it and maybe call find users. Let's see if that still works. Right, we've refactored it. Let's refresh. Okay, that still works. But now I can just call find all users. I can just reuse that and put that as my callback. Right, user service, create user, and then find all users, right? That allows me to go back to the server and say, well, give me the latest and greatest, all right? So let's try and do that. Let's see. Let's refresh, and let's add some more garbage here. Let's say create, and it didn't work. Refresh. What happened here? Let me see. Let's create. So I'm guessing it is going out to a network. So there was the post. Let's look at the source, and let's put a breakpoint in the. Oh, we still have that? Wait, didn't we change this? Huh. I think I'm looking at a cached version of my page. So let's restart my server. I think my server is confused. Let me restart the server. Make sure that it's deploying. I should be able to modify static files, and the server should redeploy them just new without me having to restart. Let's refresh. Okay, let's try create, and still nothing. What? Do I need to clear my cache? Control.
Welcome to VoiceOver, which makes descriptions of
No, I don't want voiceover.
VoiceOver.
Okay, inspect. Where's my source? Here's jQuery. Components. Okay, that is working. Okay, let me try something else. Let's see. Create. And it's still not working. Find all users, create all users. Let's. Oh, okay. Looks like I have something wrong here. Create user. Create user. Cannot read property. Create user of undefined. Oh, you know what? What's happening there? I think what happened is that when we declare the service, we declare all these other finder methods that are not declared, right? Probably is complaining that it cannot instantiate it. Let's try it again. Okay, there it is. There they are. All my. Let's do one more just to make sure. There it is, right? So it is loading, all right? And just to make sure that we are actually implementing this correctly, we like to maybe remove some of this garbage. So let's go on and do some deletes on this, all right?